took a lot of,
Mhm.
it was anger, it was confusion, all that kind of stuff. But once again, what did God do? He was long suffering and he pursued me.
Rewrite.
Rewrite. New life, new beginning.
Hey, we're back with another Rewrite podcast. I'm Jonathan, and man, I am so excited. Jeremy Camp joins me today. Dude, it is so good to be with you. What is going on?
That's good to be with you, man. I'm doing really well. I actually just got back from a trip with my friends who've been friends for 26 years. We did a golf trip, and just like it's one of those deepening connections, sharing all the things that are going on. So I just got back, and my heart is full right now.
How'd you do?
Terrible. But see, I had knee replacement surgery in December, so it's my first like outing. So you're trying to figure out how to, I'm still healing too, so
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out. So yeah, I didn't do very well, but that's okay. It was worth it.
Lot of handicaps,
Oh yeah,
lot of mulligans,
a lot of mulligans, a lot of foot wedges, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
got a couple extra golf balls in the pocket and just drop it right there.
Oh, exactly.
Come on, man.
Love
You
it.
you play like me.
Yeah. It's so much more fun that way.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at putt. The long game is like you're
Yeah, give me a
you don't know what
putter.
you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. So good, man. I'm doing
Dude,
well. Thank you.
good, man. Good. Family's hanging in there. Everybody's good.
Doing really well. I mean, the sickness that's been going on,
Yeah.
that's, kind of been hitting us here and there, but we're coming out of it and getting ready to head to Guatemala together as a family. And we have a friend down there we're going to visit. Just, yeah, we're excited about that. So
That's so good. That's so good. Well, man, we welcome you in and want to give you the opportunity just to share how you came to faith in Jesus and maybe what he's showing you now in your relationship with him.
no, I love this. This is my favorite. I mean, this is sharing what God has done in my life and how he's transformed me and redeemed me. So of course, this is like, it's the best. I love talking about this. And also just, it's always like when you start sharing your faith journey, you realize where God has been in different places of your life, how he's just been so faithful and his presence has been so thick. And so I've had some very up and down moments, of course, but always just seeing God's hand of faithfulness and his long suffering in my life. We all need that long suffering for sure.
Totally.
But yeah, so I was raised in a Christian home. So I think, a lot of my upbringing, I had a great upbringing, to be honest. And I really just, we didn't have a lot. We were pretty poor. And so, we'd go to food banks and all these different things. So really learned how to step out in faith. I mean, we'd have vehicles given to us. Like we had a Pinto given to us twice. And Pintos were those cars that if they were hit in the wrong spot, they would blow up. So they had to discontinue Pintos.
Oh,
and
man.
you start thinking like when you get two Pintos given to you that are rusted out and have no ground, you're like, do people like this? So they try like, what's going on? You have these funny thoughts. But I remember one time, getting in this Pinto and I hopped in for the first time. My mom picked me up and I looked down on the ground and I could see the ground because it was rusted out so bad.
Oh, my.
And then there was a belt tied to the handle and she goes, hey, when we go around corners, pull that belt in because the door will fly open. And I'm like, hey. So, these stories of just like, I think a little bit of what that did to me was brought an insecurity, to be honest. It brought a thing where, like, even though I look back and I'm thankful for it because it taught me God's faithfulness in the midst of us not having anything. But as a young kid, I'm trying to just process all that. And so,
Oh, yeah.
I get to junior high and high school and the insecurity, the feeling like I want to, fit in. And I played sports and did really well in sports. But I just kind of was like, I wanted to see what the world had to offer. And so I started partying and started, doing things with my friends and just not God honoring. But it was interesting, but I always have just that like sense. I knew God was with me, but it was almost like I just was like, well, Lord, hold on, just give me a moment, and just experimenting and exploring. But I always found myself miserable because I felt God constantly just pressing on me, not in a way where it was condemning, but just like, son, I love you. I have more for you than this. And I kept ignoring that voice. And I remember one time, I went to a youth camp when I was 16 and this guy was speaking on Revelation and it scared me to death. First of all, I was like, oh my goodness, and, but really what it did was God spoke to me very clearly and said, Jeremy, like, I love you, but you're on the edge of a cliff right now, and you're about ready to dive into deep, darker things. And I have more for you. And I want you to run as far away as possible from that cliff.
Mhm.
And I remember I went, yes, God, that's what I want. I surrendered my heart. I mean, I went from just like not doing well at all to this transformation because God just, he loved me. He kept pursuing me. He kept telling me that I have more for you. And he redeemed me. And I remember just this feeling of like, but you love me. Like, even though I'm just ick and I've been ignoring you and you still love me. And it just was this beautiful picture of God's faithfulness and his grace, that as we know, we don't deserve, but he gives us to in abundance. And so went home, started, trying to like relearn things and try to read my Bible and still struggled for a while, but I just knew like, I want to serve, but I'm just struggling. And God told me to go to Bible college. I was all thinking about going to, I was like, well, I'm going to go to, college and maybe play sports. And that
Yeah.
was my kind of thing. And God's like, nah, you're going to go to Bible college. And I started playing music about 14 years old. Like my dad taught me some chords. And my first song I wrote was called Set Me Free. And that was when I was still struggling. And it was me just saying, Lord, you got to set me free from sin. This whole like, picture of this. I was crying out then,
Yeah.
And so basically, go to Bible college. And I remember like as clear as day, because like I said, I was still just trying to figure it out. I was doing better, but still struggling, wrestling. It was almost like I had still kind of tried to have a foot in the world a little bit, like a little toe. And God's like, can't do that. And so the first, I think, month, this guy was speaking at Bible college. And I don't remember what he was saying. I remember nothing. All I remember is I felt like God took out my heart and gave me a new heart.
Wow.
And bro, I cried for 2 hours straight, just cried and cried and cried over probably the grieving of my sin, but also just the beauty of God's love. And my heart felt so tender. Like I realized my heart was like not tender. And so he put that new heart, I feel like, in me. And all of a sudden, just everything changed. At that point, it was like I was sold out for Jesus. And I remember like some of the staff, I would be in like the kitchen of my Bible college, and no one would be around. And I'm just kind of practicing. And it was the only place where I could go with no one there. It was like at night. And somebody walked in and heard me playing and singing and was like, hey, do you want to lead worship, at the school for some of our sessions? And I was like, well, I'd love to. And that kind of began this, worship leading more and more and understanding how to lead, because before it was just, I had a garage band in high school and we kind of jammed out. And this was like learning how to lead people into worship. And it was beautiful. And I remember God would open doors for me to start playing different places. And really what happened was just this door that I just knew, because I was like, well, do I want to be a youth pastor or what do I want to do? Like, being in Bible college. And God just opened this beautiful door of just like, I want you to play music and I'm going to show you how. And all of a sudden I started getting all these places to play. And at this point I had met my wife, Melissa. Now we met and, beautiful, just loves Jesus. She heard me lead worship and we kind of had this connection. And, long story short, a lot of people know my testimony. A lot of people don't know my testimony, but, we ended up getting together and, it was just a off and on, the whole typical relationship sometimes. And at one point I remember we had broken up and I got a phone call from a friend saying, hey, Melissa has cancer. I'm like, wait, what? And so talk about like, I still cared for her a lot. And so I went to visit her and I remember walking into the room and she was in the hospital and we were just sharing and talking to her. And, I had driven home and I remember just saying to the Lord, I'm bawling. I'm like, God, if she tells me she loves me, then I'll marry her, like this moment. And don't know where that came from, but it's kind of came from, it was him, of course, going boom. And I remember going to see her again. And she goes, "Hey, you don't have to say anything to me, but I've been just praying for you. And I know this I'm going through a lot right now. So it's a lot to probably think about. But she goes, I love you." And I just kind of went, and from that point on, I just, there's other, details of the story.
Oh yeah.
I remember God just like at that point was like, this is who you're supposed to be with. And of course, the wrestle, and I don't know how much you want to interject, or because I feel like I'm talking the whole time. That's okay.
Dude, that's the beauty of this is just you sharing, man. This is great. This is great. I have noticed just that running theme as you're saying this is just the pursuit of God.
Yes.
From a young age, and and like you were saying, the long suffering, the patience of the
Yeah.
Lord. Just like I'm with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm walking with you day in,
Yeah.
day out, step by step.
Yeah. And it's beautiful to just to see that. Cause I think when you go through that struggle of, looking at me giving my heart back to the Lord when I was 16 and I still struggled and he still was just patient with me. And you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's beautiful. And so that pursuit and that long suffering. So I remember with Melissa, it was one of those things where, we started, okay, she went through chemotherapy and all this stuff and things were looking better and we got married. And then at our honeymoon, I remember she just started having some issues with her stomach and really just struggling. I remember I was just like, God, what's going on? And I was reading Corinthians said we're called to walk by faith and not by sight. And I'm like, okay, I grab my guitar, I start writing a song called Walk by Faith. And I play it for her and she's like, that's beautiful. And we ended up going to the doctor when we got back and the doctor literally pulled me aside and just said, hey, the cancer's returned and it's spread all over. And I said, well, what we got to do? What's the next step? And he was, there's nothing else to do. He goes, literally, we can't do anything else. There's weeks to months. I'm like, what do you mean? And do the devastation there. I mean, like raising a Christian home, walking by faith in a lot of ways, even with my family, it was like, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Mhm.
Am I really going to trust God in this? And so we wrestled and we prayed and we just fought and we were just like, okay, God, we trust you in everything. And I remember being in the hospital room because I couldn't, it was 3.5 months, after we got married. And she was going downhill pretty bad. And I remember just being there and she wasn't responding for a long time. And all of a sudden I just hear her sister saying she's with Jesus now.
Mm.
And all of a sudden it's just, I was on the ground, literally curled up in a fetal position,
Mhm.
just like, and I really felt God speak to me because we had this music playing in the background, like worship music and just kind of this beautiful, lifting up the name of Jesus. And she'd love to do that always. I mean, times where she'd be really sick and she'd be like, can we worship? And I'd pull my guitar out and I didn't feel like it because I was struggling. Like, God, what are you doing? And she'd be raising up her hands with no strength. She literally was just, it was watching her degrade like that was just hard. And so I remember God speaking to me when I heard that she's with Jesus now. And he said, I want you to stand up and worship me. I was like,
Wow.
nah, I'm good. Like,
Mhm.
and beautifully, he kept asking me, hey, stand up and worship. Out of obedience, I did. I remember it was like, I didn't feel it. I didn't want to because I was like just devastated and broken. I remember standing up and raising up my hands and I just started worshiping. And
Mm.
everybody in that room started raising up their hands. And I'm telling you, Jonathan, like, I've not felt the presence of God that thick ever in my life. He was he was there. It was so present. It was so beautiful. And I think if I wouldn't have had that moment of just stepping into that obedience, I wouldn't have experienced the beauty of his presence, the comfort of his presence, the power of his presence. You know what I mean?
I was thinking about that. There's the scripture in the New Testament talks about our sacrifice of praise. That
Yeah.
man, that describes it to me like that. I mean, that was your sacrifice of praise,
Yeah.
where you had to dig deep, deepest you've ever had to dig.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, this is great. I'm good
Yeah.
now. But I mean, took a lot of,
Hmm.
it was anger, it was confusion, all that kind of stuff. But once again, what did God do? He was long suffering and he pursued me.
Hmm.
And man, God, I get emotional. Sorry. I even think to this day, just the ups and downs and the
Mhm.
struggles. And God he's so patient and kind.
Mhm.
And I don't deserve it. I'm like,
Mhm.
even the fact I'm still doing this thing, I'm like, I can't believe I'm still doing this. I'm still just blown away at God's hand. And, I think more the older I get, the more I'm just learning to be grateful. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And learning, honestly, like, there's still trust issues. And I think God is really teaching me what I'm reading this book, and it's talking about prayer. It's praying like monks, living like fools. It's like this really rad book. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever heard of it, or Tyler
No,
Stein.
no.
Amazing. It sounds like it's a weird title, but it was like, but it's just almost like I miss that. But it's all about prayer. Beautiful. And it's funny. This guy had written this book, and then he went through cancer about a year later.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
talk about, yeah, and he's good now. But the whole premise was like, it's understanding the the communion with God. Prayer is like, because I battled with prayer for a long time because we prayed so much that my wife would be healed. And it's the understanding that God's desire for us is to have just relationship with him. Like, it's not a requirement of like, you need to do this for me or this for me. It's actually, all I want is relationship.
Mhm.
And what will happen is naturally, like, trust, because you're with him, you're that will happen. The fruits of the spirit will naturally come out. It's just communing with him. And even though prayer, sometimes we don't get the answers this side of heaven sometimes. And sometimes there's questions still, but it doesn't mean he's not listening. Doesn't mean that's not the point. The point is just continuing to press in. And to me, I remember a pastor friend of mine saying, did you pray that she'd be healed? Did you press in and just say, I said, yeah. He goes, then you can rest your head in your pillow at night and say, I asked the Lord, and it's just for some reason, he chose to take her home. And so it's learning that communion with him daily, where you're just inviting him into every area of your life, every single area, which will also, like, if you invite him into every single area of your life, it makes you go, okay, like things you struggle with, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to yell at that person, or I'm not going to get in the car and,
Yep.
have road rage or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? I'm not going to yell at my wife, or
Yeah, totally.
he's right there, and he's like, but even in those mistakes, because you make them, he's gracious, and then you
Mhm.
repent. He gently is like, hey, once again, what I always said before, I have so much better things for you.
Mhm.
I'm more for you.
I
And I
love
think
that.
that's where I'm at, just like in every area of my life. He's like, and it's not like I have so much more for you, like you're going to have greater success. Actually, I have
Yeah.
nothing like that at all. Like, and like, at this point, I can stop doing what I'm doing. He still would
Mhm.
be like, so much more for you. And that's
Mhm.
more relational, depth with him. It's like his well doesn't run dry.
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't run dry. So when we keep pressing in, what happens is you have this beautiful understanding of some of the depth of him, and then realize, oh, that's not even the deepest.
Mhm.
Like, it'll never stop. And so you can continue to pursue him as he's pursuing you, and realize the greatness and the depth and the riches of what he has.
Well, and then the promise of his presence. I mean, that's the beautiful thing is it's like
So good.
it's continual. I mean, it's we know ourselves where it's like, okay, I'm ready to bolt, you know, but he's like, no, I just want to be with you. And it's
Yeah.
like,
That's it.
yeah.
And that communion does establish this beautiful fruit that, it does, produce a greater relationship with your family. It
Mhm.
does produce deeper ministry opportunities, or when I go on stage, like, it's greater and deeper. But the pursuit of him is not for those things. It's just for him.
Mhm.
Those things are a natural byproduct of
Yeah.
just being with him.
It's
So
seek,
that's,
seek first. That's it.
yeah. And that's kind of just where I'm at. I mean, there's a lot in between, of course, but like,
Totally, man. We could talk all day. I mean, that's the
bro, about God's faithfulness and things that he's done. Like, I had heart surgery last year because
yeah.
of the AFib. I can go through all these things of just, whew. But I think the overall theme is that learning to commune with him in prayer is just a way to deepen that relationship. And then you will have that fruit. You will have that
Mhm.
comfort. You will have all those things that you desire, but you're not seeking him first. So all these things will be added to you. You're seeking him
Exactly.
first to seek him.
Exactly, man. That's so good. And so encouraging too, because walking it out, and that's the way we have to do it. It's step by step. It's walking it out day by day, moment by moment. And then, uh, dude, I love your heart. I mean, that's beautiful, because when it comes to the nitty gritty of life, the hard times in life, you've been through enough. We've all been through stuff, but
Yeah.
when you can look back and be like, you never left me. I can always go back to those times. You never left me.
That's right.
And that's that for the next time that hard times come. Oh yeah, you never left me.
Left me.
Never left.
It's like, even like almost not close with this, but it's like always look back on those Ebenezer's,
Mhm.
Which is the stone of remembrance.
Yeah.
And look back and go, wow, yeah, you were faithful then. Oh yeah, you were faithful then.
Mhm.
You'll be faithful now. And
Yep.
I think it's just those Ebenezer's or stones of remembrance are just beautiful times to look back and see God's hand constantly on your life and his presence constantly with you and never leaving you.
This is Rewrite, Stories of New Life in Jesus. I'm Jonathan Unthank. If you'd like to join a community of listeners who enjoy hearing the life stories of Christian music artists and influencers, then join the Rewrite text group by texting the word Rewrite, that's REWRITE, to 81891. But more importantly, if you'd like to dig deeper into your own relationship with Jesus, you can begin that journey today by texting his name, Jesus, to 81891. God bless you. Join me next time for another episode of Rewrite.